and welcome everyone to the AGM today. Thanks very much for taking the time to be here. Much appreciated. So I'll just take you through some of the things that have happened during the course of the year and where we see things progressing for the next 12 months. Next slide, please. So just a reminder of what we're trying to achieve. So I think this summarizes it quite nicely. So really targeting well, a combination of things with our fully integrated project. So renewable heat production for more than 1 million people by 2030 as we grow stepwise across the Upper Rhine Valley and we grow those geothermal production facilities. Enough lithium hydroxide production from those wells from that field for 1 million EVs per annum. And this is based off the production capacity that we're working with. And in doing so, really the original core mission for Vulcan, avoiding around 1 million tons of CO2 per annum, and that's both from the renewable energy side and also the lithium side as well. Next slide, please. So just a bit of a summary here. Apologies if you can't read this. The text is quite small, but just a bit of a summary of where we've got to over the past year. Really, it was a transformational year for us. We entered the ASX 300, which was a very good milestone. Sorry, there's a bit of feedback there. Am I okay? Yep. And we started off with a fairly significant capital raise as well, which was then followed up by a further capital raise with Stellantis this year. So well capitalized for the future. So is the mic okay? I seem to be getting a bit of, is it okay? Yep. What was also unique about Vulcan over the course of the year as well is we signed 5 binding lithium hydroxide offtake agreements with really some of the cream of the auto, the battery, and the cathode manufacturing industry. So Stellantis, Volkswagen, Renault, Umicore, and LG Energy Solution, all of whom have operations or are building operations in Europe. So really some tier 1 companies in the European battery space. As Gavin mentioned, we listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange as well on the Prime Standard. We acquired our first geothermal energy plant as well. So we've transitioned from developer to producer with that acquisition, and that provides us with a springboard to build further production capacity from that core of the field. We've also expanded into both Italy and France. France in particular is interesting because it's basically the same resource, it's the same brine field. So it means we can leverage our experience in the Upper Rhine Valley brine field as we expand in a stepwise fashion. And we signed our first heat offtake agreements as well, which I think is a sign of more things to come. More recently, in the last few months, we've had an exciting announcement on our Valsorb development, which is our own lithium extraction technology. So bringing control of our destiny for lithium extraction, which is a very niche set of skills, fully in-house. So we don't have to outsource that. And also some important developments in terms of start of construction of our on-site demonstration plant as well, which is the next evolution after our pilot plant. So really a very busy year. We also established our in-house drilling team as well with the acquisition of 2 rigs. So that's a very important strategic asset for the company to have as we build out these renewable energy projects going forward. Next slide, please. And again, please. So why is this right place, right time? This is a really rapidly evolving space. It's really interesting, actually. Every time we pick up a newspaper, we see some developments which directly affect the evolution of our company. So really, I mean, we do 2 things. We do renewable energy and we do lithium, both really exclusively for the European market. And in Europe, we see this dynamic where there's more and more slated lithium-ion battery manufacturing capacity announced. Every time we see an announcement, the manufacturing capacity seems to be getting bigger. And that's really driven by the ambition of the EU to go fully electric for transportation by 2035. So that's driving enormous investment, which is happening on the ground now in Europe to produce its own batteries. Europe wants to produce its own batteries for its own transportation, for its own electric vehicles going forward. And this is making Europe really the fastest growing lithium market in the world, certainly for the next 10 years. It is entirely reliant on imports. So in terms of lithium hydroxide, around about 90% reliance on China. And the majority of European auto manufacturers want to use lithium hydroxide for the higher performance NMC cathode batteries. That current supply of lithium is CO2 intensive, and as well as being self-reliant in terms of battery supply chain, the EU also wants to produce the greenest batteries in the world. So the current supply chain is really not fit for purpose for the European auto industry. To that aim, we obviously have our project right in the center of that market. It is the largest lithium resource in Europe, and it has a lot of scope to grow as well. So we hope to be able to update our shareholders on that in the weeks and months to come. We have our large lithium resource, which is already the largest lithium resource in Europe, but we see a lot of scope to grow that with the newly acquired licenses. So this is a very strategic asset for that European market, this really fast-growing lithium market. And we are developing the only CO2 neutral, zero fossil fuels, what we call our zero carbon lithium project. It's the only one of its kind in the world. So a very strategic asset for Europe. Next slide, please. And then we have the energy situation. So the other thing that we do is renewable energy production. At the moment, renewable power, but increasingly we see the future as being renewable heat going forwards. The ambition is there. So Europe wants to decarbonize its energy. They want to do it very quickly. And this has been further accelerated by the very unfortunate events with the invasion of Ukraine in February, and then the subsequent closure of certain gas pipelines going into Europe from Russia as well. So the need for heating in general, energy in general, but in particular renewable heating, has just really increased exponentially in Europe, particularly in Germany. And we have the ability with geothermal heat to replace gas in certain situations, particularly for heating needs, for instance, for space heating, and for certain types of industrial heating as well. So geothermal is really uniquely positioned. It has been a very small player in the renewable energy market in Germany until recently. It is a much larger player in some other jurisdictions around the world, but this is really geothermal's time to be able to capitalize on this. And the ambition is there. So the German government wants to build 100 new geothermal projects by 2030. That's a lot. The Fraunhofer Institute, one of the most respected research institutes in Germany, calculates that geothermal energy can meet a quarter of Germany's heating needs, but very large capital investment is required, and we want to be a part of this. So this is a really rapidly evolving situation, and I think the need for our project has really been highlighted with these geopolitical events in Europe. Europe really knows now that it needs to produce as much of its own energy as possible, and it needs to secure as much of its own battery raw materials as possible, which are critical to the auto industry, which is really the largest industry, certainly in this part of Europe. Next slide, please. And this we see as being the solution. So this is our zero carbon lithium project. You can see kind of the outline of the Upper Rhine Valley there. It's 300 kilometers long. It's about 30 kilometers wide. It highlighted in the golden part of the map there is the what we call the Bunter sandstone. So this is our main reservoir unit, which we target. Average lithium grade from this, around about 180 milligrams per liter lithium. And this is what we say is the basis of our resource, which is Europe's largest lithium resource. It is strategically located at the heart of this European battery industry, and you can see just how close we are. So Kaiserslautern, you can see on the left there, that's currently the home of Opel in Europe, and Opel is intending to build, as part of Stellantis, obviously as part of the Stellantis brand, they're building their gigafactory there with ACC. So you can see we really are in the heart of that battery industry for EVs. Just up the road is Stuttgart, obviously very famous home of the German auto industry. So we couldn't be closer to our customers if we tried. And you can see here the scope of our projects really stretch across the Upper Rhine Valley, and hopefully will carry on growing into the future as well. So you can see there in the center of your screen the Insheim plant, which we bought during the year. Landau Süd, we have a brine offtake agreement with, that also happened during the course of the year. So this is the producing core of the field, and we really intend to expand north and south in a stepwise fashion, so we can grow in a modular fashion as the market grows. You can also see Mannheim there, where we have the renewable heat offtake agreement with MVV, which is Germany's largest largest municipal energy supplier. And you can see our license areas going north and south, which the intention is to produce both the lithium chloride and the renewable energy from as we grow this. Herx, you can see at the top, we secured a site there, which is actually quite difficult to get. So space is very limited in European chemical parks. We've secured a site there for our chemical plants, what we call our CLP, our central lithium plant. And that will be the producer of the lithium hydroxide, which will be sent to our off-takers from there. So really a hub and spoke model, the hub being in the center, or sorry, at the north of the field, and the spokes of the wheel being these combined lithium extraction and geothermal projects. Next slide, please. And again, please. This is just another visualization of it, just sort of looking up the valley, so you can get an idea of what we're trying to do. So we have these multiple wells, which will be feeding these combined renewable energy, so geothermal plants and lithium extraction plants. See there, red is geothermal, light blue is what we call our absorption plants, our lithium extraction plants. And these each will be fed by multiple producing wells in the field, and will feed back to reinjection wells. So it's a closed system. Everything, as much as possible, fits with the EU's circular economy goals. And you can see here, we're sort of roughly at the Insheim power plants and looking north. This will sort of constitute our phase 1 areas, and then we have phase 2 and perhaps phase 3, phase 4 going forwards as we build out in that stepwise modular fashion. Next slide, please. A bit of a graphical sort of representation of this as well. You can see a picture of Insheim there, which we bought during the course of the year. You can see in the background there the vineyards surrounding Insheim. So the geothermal plant is really well integrated into the local environment, and you can see very, very small footprints indeed. And really, we just want to build more of these plants with the lithium extraction attached to it. So we think this represents a sort of a modern take on mining, if you like, for lithium, which is suitable for Europe. Obviously, very difficult to build actual, real sort of mining projects with pits in Europe. And you can see from there, we will be transferring the brine to the lithium extraction plant. We also supply heat, we supply steam, we supply power, and this drives the lithium extraction process. And from that absorption plant, we send the lithium chloride up to the lithium hydroxide plant where the lithium is produced, once again using green power. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk about the different areas of our business. So we are building a fully integrated company. This is what makes Vulcan quite unique and enables our claim of net zero carbon lithium. So what we're aiming to do is not just to build out the lithium extraction, but also the renewable energy production, which handily also sort of fits the production, if you like, the mining parts, the geothermal, the wells. And we're also developing the refining parts of the process as well. So it really is a fully integrated company. We have a very good understanding of the subsurface. So we've acquired an engineering company, a subsurface geothermal engineering company, which we now call Vulcan Energy Subsurface Solutions. And they have decades of experience in the company of developing these types of geothermal projects. Interestingly, we're also recruiting a lot of people from the oil and gas industry. So as part of that just transition, really redeploying their skills. And we're very grateful for that help because there's some very, very smart people in the oil and gas industry who are coming in and helping us with our reservoir engineering. So you can see here a bit of a schematic, very simplified schematic, obviously, of how the process works. You can see what it looks like when we model our resource in 3 dimensions using the 3D seismic, using the information from the existing drilling. And this is what the projects look like in terms of generally one location on the surface with multiple wells spreading out from each location. It's a very mature field, what we're developing. So there are multiple producing projects which have the brine coming up to the surface. And that shows us that the brine is very homogeneous across the upper Rhine Valley. And that helps with really sort of a print and repeat system with the lithium extraction plants, which is what we intend to do. So lithium grades proven to be consistent over space and time within the reservoir. Next slide, please. We also have the drilling part in-house as well. So as I mentioned, we've acquired 2 drill rigs. You can see the rigs on the screen there. They're currently undergoing refurbishment. And these will be drilling the development wells, so the production, the reinjection wells next year. hopefully from Q2 onwards. So refurbishment is underway. We may also look to add more rigs in the future because we see these as being a very critical part of our development, really for the next 10 years as we aim to grow in a stepwise fashion. These rigs are quite rare in Germany, so the availability is very tight. And we looked at our schedule and we recognized that the availability was potentially an issue, so we wanted to have control of this in-house. Bearing in mind that Germany wants to develop 100 geothermal projects by 2030, having only a handful of available rigs that can drill to these depths in-house is a really strategic asset for Vulcan, for the company as well. So we're very pleased to have them on board, and we're building up our drilling team in-house. Interestingly, again, we're seeing employees coming from other companies, really because they really like the message of Vulcan and what Vulcan is trying to do. So the zero carbon lithium message is also a real recruiting tool in this industry. So we have our drilling company, which we call in-house, we call it Vercana, and I think that will be a very strategic asset going forwards. Next slide, please. We also have, as I mentioned, the geothermal plant. So this is operating at the moment and is host to our pilot plant for lithium extraction, which has moved between a couple of plants over its time, demonstrating that the brine is very homogeneous. So we have a lot of good data from about 19 months now of pilot plants production for lithium extraction. This, as I said, is part of a production license for geothermal. And we see this as really being a springboard, as I said, for future developments going forwards. So we have an operations team there, and we intend to use that operations team as a basis for further growth as we build further geothermal projects in the area. Next slide, please. In terms of our plans for future geothermal plant development as well, as I mentioned, it's going to be much more about heat going forwards because local communities can see the tangible benefits of the heat production directly flowing into the local area. So it's not just electrons going into the grid; it is, district heating, and they can see the direct benefits of that. And really, it's a lot easier to decarbonize power and to do it cheaply than it is to decarbonize heating and do it cheaply. So geothermal is uniquely positioned to do this, and we see this as a unique strength of geothermal. And this enables more lithium production. So the more heating projects we do, generally we get a lot of support from the community in doing these heating projects. And that means we can go into this area and we can also extract the lithium as well, which is one of the main drivers of our business model. So heating, very important for Vulcan going forwards. Next slide, please. And then we come to the lithium extraction part. So once again, we're not reliant on external technology providers. We've really built up this expertise in-house. So we have a fully functional laboratory, which is now expanding, again, with all the analytical equipment that we need in-house, so we don't have to rely on external analytics. We've built now 2 pilot plants. So we have a non-pressurized one and a pressurized one, both running, both at the Insheim geothermal plant. We've developed our own sorbent in-house. So this is the same, really, the same family of sorbents as was originally developed by Dow in the 70s. So it's very well-known technology. But there's only a handful of producers in the world of this sorbent. And most of the current supply chains are in China or Russia. So we wanted to bring this in-house and actually produce our own sorbent and have control over our own destiny. The sorbent is partly made out of lithium as well. So once we've done our first fill for the plant, there is an opportunity to use some of our own lithium and thus reduce costs of that sorbent production. And we'll be replacing around about 10% a year of our sorbent in the commercial plant. So what that means is having that in-house, we have much more control over our destiny and control over our OPEX going forwards as well. And this is also an asset for the company. We think going forwards, having that IP in-house, we can also take that to other brine fields as well. We have our hands full very much in the Upper Rhine Valley at the moment, but medium term, long term in the future, we can look to apply this know-how elsewhere as well. Next slide, please. Also to mention that we are currently building our demo plant for lithium extraction for the same thing, for the sorption to take the lithium out of the brine. This is really the lithium extraction process. And we are doing we're in the concluding stages of our definitive feasibility study also for this same plant design, obviously for a commercial plant. And really, once that DFS is out of the way, we're looking at starting to secure. So we'll be in a bridging phase, but we'll look to start to secure long lead items for the commercial plants. So that'll happen next year. That'll happen quite quickly. And the reason we're moving very quickly on that is because we see that certain items have a very long lead time now for delivery. So that's really changed in the last year with the situation with supply chains due to Russia and Ukraine and due to COVID as well. So we need to move quickly to make sure we meet our timelines. Next slide, please. Just a brief mention as well, in terms of using this type of lithium extraction, we are in good company. So absorption is used in the lithium industry by multiple commercial projects. You can see sort of on the left side of us there, there's 3 projects in China. There's 1 project in South America. The project in South America has been working since the late 90s. So this is a commercially very well proven technology, which we are adapting to our brine chemistry. And you can see there's a whole host of development projects which are also using absorption, including Rio Tinto's project in Argentina. But as you can see there on the screen, there is quite a heavy Chinese and Russian influence on that supply chain. So once again, that's the reason for bringing the control of that sorbent IP and production in-house. Next slide, please. And then we come to the lithium hydroxide production part. So you can see our plot there on the screen. So that's the Herx Chemical Park. So we've got quite a large plot there, which we've secured. We'll have a demonstration plant there next year, which we call Lily, which will be training our operations team in a pre-commercial environment. We're also obviously doing the DFS for this plant as well. But in addition to that, we'll be looking at long lead items for the commercial plant next year as well. We have an agreement with a company called Nobian, so formerly part of AkzoNobel. They are a chlor-alkali producer, and this process is very similar to the chlor-alkali industry. It basically uses the same cells. So the operations of this plant, we recognize that Nobian has a lot of expertise in this space. So potentially a good partner for us in the future to be continued. Next slide, please. And then just on the lithium hydroxide offtake agreements, I touched on them before. So this is a series of major milestones during the course of the year. We have Volkswagen, Germany's largest company, backing us now with this binding lithium hydroxide offtake agreement. Stellantis, that investment represented the first equity investment in a listed lithium company by a top-tier OEM. So we're very proud to have Stellantis as 8% shareholder in Vulcan. And once again, very important strategic partner for us. Stellantis is Opel in Germany. They are Peugeot, Citroën in France, and a whole host of other brands globally. So a very large backer of Vulcan. Renault, also very important, obviously very close to the French state, a very important company in France. So important to have them as off-takers as well. LG Energy Solution, one of the largest EV battery producers in the world. Umicore, one of the only cathode producers in Europe, so the direct user of our product, and very important to have them in because they'll provide a lot of technical feedback to us on the product that we provide. So Umicore already will be supplying cathode to a lot of these actors in the supply chain anyway. So really a stellar cast of off-takers that Vulcan has managed to secure. Next slide, please. Just a bit of a schematic on what our project will look like in a commercial setting. So this is what we're working on, the definitive feasibility study at the moment. So you can see here, phase 1 on this side, you have multiple geothermal plants, including the existing one. We'll have 2 lithium extraction plants supplying phase 1 of the electrolysis plant. So you can see here, you've got the reservoir, you've got the wells, the geothermal plants, the lithium extraction plants, and the central lithium plants, all within one integrated project. So there's a lot of moving parts, but this integration also provides us with a lot of leverage and a lot of strength. We have phase 2 then as well, which will be the next stage of our development. This will be outlined in what we call a sort of a PFS plus, a pre-feasibility study for phase 2, which will come out shortly after the definitive feasibility study. We've already done a pre-feasibility study on this before, but we'll be updating that with the latest data, and then we'll move into a DFS for phase 2 as well. And then potential for further phases to add more capacity from our license area after that. Next slide, please. And again, please. Just a note on the lithium market and the lithium price environment. It's obviously been very fun to watch the lithium price go vertical in the last few months. We're not getting carried away by this. This is the spot market. It represents a bit of a sort of a short-term supply-demand imbalance. We're focused on the longer term, and really we're focused on 2025 onwards in terms of where the pricing is going to be. Luckily, though, that seems to be very, very robust. So I think most forecasters, with perhaps the exception of Goldman Sachs, see a very tight supply-demand dynamic in the years to come. I look at this, and most of the forecasters are assuming that all of the lithium projects currently in development are going to get up and running. I just don't see that happening for geopolitical reasons, for technical reasons. Sometimes, frankly, for incompetence reasons, there's going to be some of those projects which get delayed and fail. But even in the best case scenario, assuming they all ramp up on time, on budget, there's still a supply demand deficit. So I think the lithium outlook for the next 10 years at least is very, very robust indeed. Frankly, I think it's more of a risk to the electric vehicle transition. I just don't see the transition happening as quickly as we think, as quickly as we would like. And the reason for that is these projects are very large and very complex to build and take a lot of time and capital to do so. And not enough are being built at the moment. Not enough capital is going into this. So medium term, long term, we do see a very robust market and supply demand dynamic for lithium. We will use long-term price assumptions in our DFS. So that will be in the 20s, I would say, looking at sort of consensus analyst forecasts in terms of thousands of dollars per ton lithium hydroxide. In 2021, we had 14,900 as an assumption in our study. So we're ticking it up a little bit, obviously nowhere near the current spot price of around about 70,000 US a ton. Next slide, please. We do still expect to be a very low operating cost business because we are fully integrated, because we're leveraging off that freely available heat within the brine, and therefore have a very low reagent cost, because heat drives absorption, and the absorption drives the lithium extraction, produces a very pure lithium chloride product, which enables us to use the lithium hydroxide, and we produce a lot of the energy that we need internally, so we're not exposed so much to the energy shocks in Europe. So we do expect to still retain that relative position in the market. Obviously, these figures will change in the DFS, but we do expect to still be relatively a very low, certainly lowest cost quartile operating cost project. We will have a high capex, that is beyond doubt, because we're building up all of these different parts of the project. It is capital intensive. Geothermal is capital intensive. Geothermal drilling is capital intensive, and we're building up multiple plants. So, but that it was the same in the PFS. Once again, we were highest quartile capex, lowest quartile opex. We expect to see the same dynamic in the DFS, and capex will go up relative to PFS because it's a bigger project, and we've seen significant cost inflation since then. So that's all we can say at the moment. Obviously, the DFS hopefully will be coming out in Q1, and we'll be able to give you more detail on those numbers then. Next slide, please. These are the PFS numbers. Obviously, that will be updated in the DFS, but we're working with BNP Paribas now and really starting to ramp up our efforts towards financing. So after the DFS comes out, we're going to launch into debt and equity financing. Slightly unconventionally, we'll probably do something on the equity side first, and that's really to maintain that momentum in terms of ordering long lead items. So we don't want to wait for the whole debt process to play out. We need to move fast. On the equity side, we are assessing our options. What we'd like to do is we'd like to bring in a strategic partner at the asset level. So we are looking at the possibilities for doing that after the DFS is completed. And this could be something like an energy company, like an oil and gas company that has similar skill sets to what we're doing on the geothermal side. So assessing our options there, but we recognize that this is a very large project, so perhaps bringing in more partners at the asset level preserves value for shareholders in the longer term, but also brings in a strong technical partner to help us push this project forward. Next slide, please. And again, please. Our sustainability report is over there. It's a fantastic piece of work. A lot of hard work went into that from the team who are here today. So I encourage you to read that. Really, we're building on our initial goal of zero carbon lithium and really integrating this into how we work as a company. and our Vulcan values of integrity, leadership, future focus, and sustainability. Next slide, please. And this is really where the Vulcan project stands out. These are based off our pre-feasibility study. This is our life cycle assessment. This will be updated, but you can see even with these figures from the PFS, how Vulcan is a standout project in terms of sustainability. And that's enabled us to bring in these high quality people into our company. It's also enabled us to bring in high quality partners and off-takers into our company as well. So this has a direct, tangible effect on how we operate as a business. It's not just a nice slide in a presentation. We also joined as a forum member of the TNFD, which is the Nature Task Force for Financial Disclosures. This hasn't even been released yet, so we really want to be at the forefront of best practice for sustainability reporting and the way we operate as a company, sustainability-wise. It's a very core part of who we are. During the year, we also became a UN Global Compact member as well, also towards that goal of being really best practice in this space. And we are obviously certified as carbon neutral as well. Next slide, please. A big part of what we do, a big focus of the year has been community relations and government relations. We have a great story to tell, and we see, I guess, a lot of momentum in this space in Germany, and we want to make sure that local governments, state government, federal governments in the EU are all behind us. I think for the large part, they are, and I think we're really seeing momentum shift in our direction as well. So just some quotes there from some very prominent government members in Germany, really backing what we're doing, the geothermal developments, the lithium developments in the Upper Rhine Valley. So some really good progress from Horst and the team there in Germany. Next slide, please. This doesn't happen, none of this happens without community, really very local community on the ground. We are building multiple projects across the Upper Rhine Valley. It is critical that we do this together with local communities, with local municipalities, local mayors, and local people. So we're a big employer already in the area. We're opening up info centers. It's quite a complex project, so really to inform people of what we're doing and how the process works. And we've had multiple tours from local mayors and local politicians, local scientists. We've been sponsoring local events as well. So really in the last year, this process of community engagement has accelerated a lot, and Horst and the team are really, really busy towards this end. We've got 12 people in the company just focused on this particular part. So it's a big focus for us. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. We've also been busy hiring as well. So if you know anybody looking for a job, we are hiring a lot of people. We've got 180 full-time employees in the company at the moment. We are recruiting scientists, engineers, chemists, chemical engineers, reservoir engineers, a whole host of people that are needed. And I think we'll effectively be doubling in size over the next 12 months. So it's a big recruitment drive going on. As I said, one of the main drivers for that recruitment is the message that we have. We can't pay as much as a big German chemicals company or an oil and gas company, but we can motivate people with our core mission of zero carbon lithium. And that is a very, very powerful recruitment tool. And we've had people directly telling us that they're coming to us because of that goal. So it helps to have motivated employees. And these are the guys who make things happen. Next slide, please. The boards you've already met today, but very important part of making this project work is having those skill sets on the board to govern what we do. And I think we've got a really good breadth of skills and experience now across the different industries we cover in terms of raw materials, in terms of chemicals, in terms of the battery industry, EV industry, the mining industry, and ESG as well. So really very good skill set there. Next slide, please. And again, please. We're moving now into the project execution phase. So it's a very different skill set now going forwards. And really we need to set ourselves up for success. So this is quite a new slide. This is quite a live situation. We are evolving as a company really into much more of that project execution mode and bringing in the DNA of actually the oil and gas industry, which has some really good systems that we need for efficient project execution. For a project of this size, certainly north of $1 billion of capex. Chris Marino joined us. Chris joined us from Northvolt a few weeks ago. Northvolt is a large battery soon-to-be producer, developer who will be supplying Volkswagen. So Chris has been developing their cathode plants in Europe, so has direct experience of building cathode plants, lithium plants in Europe. Chris was previously in the oil and gas industry, so brings that DNA of this large project execution capability in-house, and is very busy adjusting our systems and adjusting our structures, so we're set up for success. So I think there'll be a lot of movement in this space going forwards in Vulcan as a result of that. Next slide, please. So I'll just finish up with timeline. So we're working hard to complete the phase 1 DFS. That should be completed in Q1 23, so not too long now, hopefully. And then, as I said, next year is about starting to go into that execution phase. There'll be a bridging phase, and we'll be looking at ordering our first long lead items for the commercial plant. So really a step change there in how we operate. Financing during the course of next year. So we'll be working with BNP, we'll be liaising with export credit agencies, we'll be liaising with the European Investment Bank and many multilaterals across Europe and globally, in fact, to finance this project, also on the equity side, as I mentioned. So a lot of the work that we will be doing between now and then will be towards financing this project for that large capex that we need. Permitting will be continuing really until we start production. We need a number of permits all the way up to when we actually turn on the plant. So that's a big focus of the team. Drilling, as I said, we should be ready to start in Q2 of next year. And then we'll start to print and repeat, hopefully, after phase 1, phase 2, and further phases after that. So hopefully we get better and better at this project execution going forward. And still targeting that production in 2025. It is a tight timeline. There's no way around that. It is a very, very tight timeline for what we need to build. We continue to think it's achievable, but it is tight and we need to work very hard to achieve that. We're up against very unprecedentedly bad supply chains in terms of equipment delivery. It's a very competitive labor market, so we're not without challenges, but we can see that in Germany, when projects are critical for the country's economy, they can be executed quickly. We've seen an LNG project which was executed in 9 months to receive LNG into Germany, and I think that would have taken. I mean, the airport in Berlin famously took over a decade to build. So when something is critical for the economy, it can happen very, very quickly, and you can cut through the red tape. Tesla's Gigafactory also popped up very quickly indeed. So we know this can be done. It's not going to be easy, but bear with us and we'll get there. As I said, the next major milestone is the DFS, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about that in the coming months in Q1 of next year. Next slide, please. Well, I'll leave it there. I think that was the final one, and look forward to your questions at the end of the meeting. Thanks very much.